Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we want to welcome you to Focus on Liberia. Good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to our show here at Focus on Liberia. This is the Hour of Politics with me, Anthony Sie. In this edition of the Hour of Politics, a special guest is in studio. He might not be new to most of you. He is politically active, and it is my pleasure to have this gentleman who I will be introducing momentarily. Hit that share button for us quickly. There is a topic that we have for you. Don't worry about the big word, partyism. It is all about political parties and all the activities that about. Welcome to the show. There are many of us who either, if not part of a political party, some way, somehow support somebody in a political party. And political parties play a very major role in our political process and our democracy. Well, somebody who has been with a political party is my guest, Mr. Zakama. He has impeccable experiences in being part of a political party and the efforts being made to contribute to Liberian democracy and our political process. At this time, I will welcome my guest, Mr. Zakama. I call him the chairman for some reason. Don't ask me why. Welcome. I'm happy to have you. We are in the seasons period, so let me say Happy New Year, my friend.
Thank you very much, Anthony Sia. Thanks for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be with you this morning to discuss issues pertinent to our nation as it relates to the multi-partism in Liberia. Thanks so much for the invitation once more. And happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you and your family, and happy holidays to all of you following us here at Focus on Liberia on our program, The Hour of Politics with me, your guy, Anthony Sie. Like I said earlier, we are talking about political parties. Everything about political parties will be discussed. We will talk about a little history of Liberian political parties to the best of our knowledge. We'll talk about political parties and its roles, political parties and their role in our democracy. We'll talk about, yes, political party yesterday, today. What are the similarities we're looking at today's political parties and the political parties of yesterday? Also, we'll talk about the role of the diaspora, that Liberians in the diaspora, especially those of us in the United States, what role have we been playing historically and even now into the politics of Liberia? I have some tough questions there for our guests. There are many things in our policy that we have come to know also. There's the one-man show, strong men, political godfatherism, I call it, militancy in our political, at least in new party doctrine, party philosophy. Well, Mr. Zakama has been a part of a political party to my very unique knowledge, and he is here to share his experience and a little history on that. Let's get started. Mr. Zakama, I know you, but there are many people who continue to hear that name and don't know much. So briefly, in maybe 45 seconds, what are you willing to share with my audience so that many of them can have the opportunity to know you a little more?
Pretty much, I would like to first of all begin by saying that, again, once more, thanks for the invitation. And my purpose here today is to, discuss a snippet of our political parties, the dynamicism that continue to occur. As we all know, our body politics has evolved over time since, I would say, about 41 years ago, almost 41 years ago, since we came away from the one-party state where we had a political party, the Chewy party leading for that long, and to look at what has occurred over the years and how can we kind of adapt to a new set of not just the political party, but how do we integrate that into the new into technology, especially the social media, as we see that the influence of social media on multi-partyism in third world country and its impact. I think that's where some of us will be able to talk about. But again, I want to say thank you for the invitation, and that's why, personally, I love politics, and I cannot, get away from it. Even if I try to pretend that I want to be out of it. Yeah.
And I share that same feeling, sometimes like, you know what, I'm not going to be part of it. But hey, that's not what real men do. Real men talk politics. And so we're going to do it. But this time we are taking a little educational perspective interspersed with history so that we will know how far we have come as a people, politically speaking, on our politics. And so quickly, let's get the opening question here rolling. Political parties and their role in Liberia democracy. What do you know, to the best of your knowledge, has been the role of our political parties since we, became a republic?
Well, first of all, we have to understand it in context. Political party overall harnesses ideas from all walks of lives and the form of uniform body to say, people that subscribe to that have the same like minds, try to organize themselves on a one body politics to kind of, preach what they believe in order to transform the country. But I always like for people to understand that forming different political parties doesn't necessarily mean that people cannot or do not love their country. It's just that the pathways in which they prioritize the scale of preference in terms of their ideas, in terms of how they want to transform the nation and impact lives are all pretty much, the pathway could be different, but overall, it all ends to the concept of trying to develop that country and its people.
And I'm just trying to get from you the significance, the cardinal role of political parties in our democracy, in the life of the nation. What role do they play and how important it is?
I think they play an important role. You get to understand what people really feel, what they want for their country. Okay, and believe me, I always look at political party as a multiplicity of ideas emanating from some, I would say, pressure group. Take for example, feminism. Be one pressure group, but somebody can take that and infuse that into a political institution and become one of the major pillars of that party. And somebody else will talk about social equality. So, another group will talk about social justice. You put all together, it become, as you list them down, they can also become part of a political institution. Whereas you have a pressure group can only focus on one strategic objective. Say, for example, you have a civil society a group that just focusing on teenage pregnancy, and you have they can bring that. They can only just remain in that institution and advocate for how to avoid teenage pregnancy. That particular group can only look for a political institution that espouses such similar idea, and they can pretty much be able to support that. But if you look at overall a political institution, I always like to look at it as a multiplicity of ideas from diverse backgrounds coming together to perfect an institution, and then listing out all of their main objective, strategic objective as a platform to campaign on. If the people believe that such institution resonate with their belief, they can pretty much subscribe to that. But again, it's all about deliverables. So even though you might have those beautiful platforms, if you can't translate those abstract concepts into real time, then the people believe that such idea is only fine or beautiful on paper, but in terms of translating those ideas, they don't feel that it's applicable, and they will feel that they've been deceived.
And Mr. Zakama, I get to hear this quite too often. What good is a political party if it can capture state power? And I also hear that, the goal of a political party is to capture state power, to win the presidency, most necessarily. Are there truths to these statements?
The overall objective of any political institution is to capture state power. That's obvious. However, considering our type of, the structure we have that welcome multi-partism, it is impossible, literally impossible, for a political party to just win 50+1. So it forces a political institution that has, let's say, 30 to 40% of the electorate, or those registered voters, to be forced to form a coalition. And that's what we keep seeing in our country. We have not seen a political party winning in the first round, because you have multiple political parties. Everybody is pretty much gathering from 2 to 3%, taking away, let's say, from major political parties to reach, to get 50+1. So that alone make every political institution in Liberia to play a very important role. That's why you keep hearing about coalition, and you keep hearing about a collaboration, meaning those political parties that enter the second round will reach out to the smaller political parties that gather, let's say, perhaps 1%, 2%, to kind of help them out in order to cross the finish line. That's the 50+1. So do they play an important role in the process? Definitely. That's the purpose of our multi-party system.
Thank you so very much. Again, folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. This is our program, The Hour of Politics, with me, Anthony C.A. In studio, I have with me as guest Mr. Arthur Zakama. Mr. Arthur Zakama is Chairman Emeritus of the Congress for Democratic Change. But in this capacity, he's discussing as a Liberian on the Liberian political parties, or partyism, if you like. Mr. Zakama, quite clearly, we have had a number of political parties historically.
Yeah.
You may be able to name some if you like, but as a young man coming up some time back, I remember the Liberian Action Party that contributed significantly to the political narrative of our country at the time. That is the one I remember most. And fast forward, I heard about the Unity Party, and then the NDPL, and then I remember the UPP and the LPP. I was very much young at the time, so I didn't get to see what they did pretty much, but I remember the Liberian Action Party, the Cocodioko. So these political institutions, some way or the other, contributed to the political narrative of Liberia, bringing about participatory democracy. To your knowledge, what are some parties and what role did they play in the growth of our democracy?
Well, we first of all, before talking about the political party in our multi-party system that we have now, we also have to give credit to how this whole multi-partyism came about, especially in the 80s. We have to go back maybe a few years back and give this credit to students from the diaspora that organized themselves on the umbrella of what is now called EULA. Okay, EULA, there were students that came to this country learning, and after getting that exposure, were able to take back home and pressure the government. So they came what they have, I believe it was the Progressive Alliance Movement, Alliance or so, I think PAL. And then they used that as a platform to kind of advocate on behalf of the Liberian citizens and the country itself, how Turbo should transform the country. It began with Becker Rice, and then the 1979 riot, and then subsequently we had the April 12th, and then Samuel Doe, came to power with the 17 men who still have power in existence. When Samuel Doe also promised to transition the country from a military rule to a multi-party system, they suspended the constitution and then constituted a constitutional committee. And within that constitutional committee, we were able to give birth to the new republic with what you call today a multi-party system. So the credit goes to G. Bacchus Matthew, Amos Sawyer, Tangaba Jangaba, you can go Marcus Dan, you can go down the list of the people that actually came up with that ideas, and today Liberia is benefiting from multi-party system. And I think it's beneficial overall for the growth and transformation of our country, because it encompasses all Liberians to participate in the process. So you might not be likely somebody who believes or subscribe to NDPL or LAP, but you will like LPP, like Luke. I think it was a teacher who came from nowhere, an unknown figure that came and organized Liberia Unification Party. And today, as we all know, Unity Party was organized and formed by the late Dr. Bian Kessley.
Yeah.
Okay, but fast forward, we found out that LAP, LUP, and Unity Party, they merged. So today, Unity Party, even though is emblematic now and all Liberians are aware of it, but LAP and LUP are also within that merger. I think that's the only party so far that I'm aware of that have merged, as compared to the CDC, which is a coalition. You have now the CPP, which is also a coalition. So it seems like, as we all know, coalition, political parties still maintain their identity, and they can still have their own, within their own domain, have their own, what you call, election, primary, and select the people that they want to represent them. So we have to look at all of those, I would say, nuances, and see where we find our country today.
And so, from what you just explained, Liberia, whether or not somebody see it as positive progress, but if you're looking at it in terms of, participation, well, there has been participation on the part of political parties, which also includes individuals. One thing we must also not forget about is the True We Party. I don't know much about it. I know a little that that was the party of William V.S. Todman, who led our country for 27 years. To your best knowledge, tell me a little bit about the True We Party. How was the True We Party able to rule Liberia?
Well, again, let's look at the True We Party. The True We Party, it was an oligarchy form of government, one party state, and where people, literally everyone subscribed to that party. So the leader doesn't have to go and look for somebody to be part of a coalition. Everybody work within that framework. So for 133 years, we have one social class that morphed themselves from one political institution to another, and then came the grand old party that is True We Party. So True We Party did not have any opposition. True We Party, they might have come across some resistance by Detour, by Aberport, and then followed by the G. Bacchus Matthew, one of our legend today, credit to him, Samuel Jackson. And, these are people that we have to ask more about how they came about. But it seems I see how people lambast these guys. Yes, perhaps there are things that we don't think they achieve, but believe me, what we are experiencing today is because of their advocacy. It's because of their advocacy. So, but again, True We Party is still part of the political institutions in Liberia. How powerful they are is all, it's all a reflection of how they led for, let's say, the 100+ years. So, can they transform? Can they craft a message that will resonate with the Liberian people as compared to the newer political institutions? That's something that they have to decide.
That is something that they have to decide. Focus on Liberia, the hour of politics with me, Anthony C. My guest is Mr. Arthur Zakama. He is politically active in the Liberian political arena. That's right. I'm talking with him here exclusively on political parties in Liberia. And for those of you watching, we will get to the role of the diaspora in Liberian politics. And this is where you want to be as we discuss substantive issues when it comes to political participation in Liberia. Mr. Zakama, let's talk about lessons. that we can learn. And I don't want us to dwell so much on the past, the way too past now. What lesson can we learn from the Multi-Partism, especially of recent? And will you say some of these lessons are promising, that things that we can build on? Uh, what comes to your mind should somebody ask you, what lesson can we learn from this party's business in Liberia?
Well, you see, whatever lesson we try to learn from since we've been having, we have been, let's say, exercising this whole multi-partism since I would say post-war. Mm-hmm. We can say that there are many political parties that are still struggling to meet threshold. Mm-hmm. But again, when I say threshold, it hasn't been set. But can we set threshold to make sure that political parties meet those thresholds consecutively, maybe say in a presidential and midterm election or by-election? I will not mention special election, because special election could be in the case of somebody incapacitated or a deaf or what have you. But let's say what is scheduled based on the staggering process they have as it relates to representatives and senators. Mm-hmm. We need to really set threshold for our political institutions. I've heard, I don't know how true it is, we have more parties that don't necessarily, when they go into the presidential election, garner 1%. And we still having it making ways through. I think it's time now that as a political institution going through presidential and midterm, mm-hmm. we should set a threshold that they should meet at least 2% of the register of voters in that election. That if we don't qualify, if we don't reach that, then we get rid of you. And then you have to reorganize yourself to see how you can come back, because you have to make the process competitive. Mm-hmm. You can't have people who try to only be prepared for, for what we call a coalition. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to deprive other institutions. That's how it will be perceived. But if you are a political institution, you should be able to meet some kind of threshold in order to remain viable. I will give you an example. I know, because many times our own people like to use the US, right? So right. I'll give an example of the US. States control those thresholds. So Minnesota, if you are a political institution and you want to run here, you will have to meet, let's say, for example, 3% of the past election before you are qualified to still remain on the ballot. I'm only giving 3%. I'm not too sure of that accuracy, but I'm just saying that there is a threshold to remain on the ballot for the next time.
Yeah.
But if you cannot meet that threshold, obviously you will not be listed in the coming election. And that's how what we're trying to do here, we're trying to make political parties to really work hard to maintain the sustainability of their institution and how viable and vibrant they can be in order to sit at the negotiating table as it relates to what you call coalition. But if you can barely meet 1%, let's say you're meeting 0.01%, then I don't see the reason why you are still in the race. And that's something that I would like to see the National Election Commission, or maybe they need to communicate that to the Liberia legislature to see how they can really pass that into law. There's nothing wrong forming your political party if you meet the 500 registrants across the country per county, fine. But if you go into election 2 consecutive times and you can barely meet those names, even your own 500 people, there's something wrong with you.
And political parties, I like the way you emphasize the issue of threshold, as that which could be a measure to make the political process competitive. But let's come to the political party themselves, standards.
Yeah.
Do you see standards within the political parties, so much so that the parties are up to what a political party is supposed to be or should be at the
Well,
standards?
yeah, I think the question relates to how, I mean, our registration process. Who
Mhm.
qualifies? Because they have the criteria that qualifies political institution to participate in the process. So I have not seen. I think they have their own threshold.
Mhm.
What I mean, criteria, what you have to meet. They know it very well. I believe the counties, you got to meet certain registered voters. I mean, constitutional age from 18 up. You should have like X number of people in each county, and then there should be some deposit. I believe about 10,000, 7,000, or 10,000 for a political institution. All of these things we're talking about can easily be met by people who have the money, but how verifiable are they in terms of those that the names that they're submitting per county? How do they verify those names to make sure that there isn't duplication of people who, let's say, two political parties going to Nima County registering 500 each? Is it possible that you could have duplication of a person? How NEC is verifying those names? Another thing here is the credibility of the leader. Were they involved in corruption? Because the point here is that you got to make sure these people that registering political parties, they are clear of any criminal, okay, conviction or what have you. All of these things must be, I believe they have it, but how in depth are they verifying to make sure that we don't have corrupt officials that want to only register a political party to remain viable, or to like with the mindset of want to pay back instead of trying to like making sure that we're sanitizing our entire political institution or environment to make sure that we're not just empowering people that have criminal records on them, but then forming another political party. I think those are things that we have to like do in our institutions, especially in the republic, that is so common as it relates to corruption. We have to know who are those that are registering political parties.
And Mr. Zakama, do you feel that this multi-partyism is being abused in Liberia? And I ask this because, like you acknowledge, we see parties registering now and then. I believe the parties in Liberia might be more than 30 political parties, but there are very few we know of. Is multi-partyism being abused in Liberia?
Well, I cannot say that it's been abused, but I think people look at it as a doorway to make themselves vibrant or visible within the political limelight.
Mm-hmm.
Because when people leave another political party, they could be leaving for a very good reason. But and again, they could be leaving for the wrong reason because they've been penalized, or they have done something wrong in that party, and they are not being given chance to run or contest in any race. They leave and form a different party. That to me has nothing to do with how NEC should make sure that yes, it's multi-party.
Any recent example of some individuals who left their political institutions,
Well, I
because
don't
maybe they couldn't
want
get their way?
I think I could give names of people, but I will try to stay away to kind of create a much more friendly conversation today.
Okay.
We all know how some people, I mean, like CDC, like the Unity Party, those two political institutions, there have been offshoots of other that have come out of them, and
Right.
then we know that people didn't just go to form a political institution because everything was going honky donkey in their, let's say, original party. It's
Right.
because of what they saw that wasn't right. That's what I'm saying. People might have left for good reason, and some people left because of their own character, not aligning with the political doctrine.
Again, folks, in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. We are in an exclusive conversation with Mr. Zakama. We are talking multi-partyism in Liberia, political parties yesterday and today, and we are looking at everything about political parties in Liberia. So let's come to some things that are very common, almost among all the political parties. We see this strong man show. We see political godfatherism. In other words, the party is centered around one person. And some people, a lot of people have problem with it, but some people dance to that music. Is there any danger in that? With this attitude within our political parties?
Oh yeah, and we have first and foremost we have to understand that membership in these kind of political parties, I would say they are very fluid. Mm-hmm. You have people coming in and out because of just what you mentioned, because mm-hmm. there's only one person who is the godfather. If you don't subscribe to what he says or does, obviously you have to decide whether to stay in or get out. So that makes it very difficult. And again, for political institutions, as we all try to like look at it in concept, mm-hmm. it's being run by maybe one or two persons, making it difficult for it to survive after the exit of that person. So we can give a good example of after the demise of Tober, which was a one-party system, mm-hmm. The resurrection of a true party seems to be nowhere to see. We can see the future.
The true party is dead. Don't be diplomatic about it. It's dead.
Yeah, it is. But I'm just saying that we've seen that after the demise of President Tober, mm-hmm. we saw the demise of Samuel Doe. Mm-hmm. That later on,
the NDPL died a natural death.
Yeah, it died a natural death, and then we saw that literally the NPP would have gone into the same dustbin of history if not because of the coalition. Okay, so
I think the NPP is in political coma. I don't think it's going to resurrect
because of the coalition. Obviously, they're being, I would say, they've been given oxygen to survive.
That's the right one.
Yes, so they're pretty much surviving within the coalition. I'm not trying to take away from what they are contributing to CDC. I'm just saying that if they would have remained as an independent, one-party state, they might not have even met the threshold because of the grand old grandfather of the party, Charles Taylor, who is now in prison for 50 years. Mm-hmm. So we keep seeing this happening, and that's why some of us believe that if the institution is built around ideas and not necessarily an individual, it can take the party from one state that is an individual who leads the party. When he leaves, it continues to move on because what? It's built around an institution. So what is killing the party now is we have not really divorce ourselves from one man, the godfather, built around one person. And that the poison, I consider the poison, right, is knowingly or unknowingly the poison that keeps killing most of these parties by the time they get out of power. Because today we have the CDC. Mm-hmm. The future of CDC, I can tell anybody, is predictable if we don't transition from one man. That is, with all due respect to Mr. President George Manuel Weah. If we don't try to build the institution to make sure that when he leaves, the party still remains strong, then CDC would take the same, would just
so for the same fate as other parties in the past?
Obviously, I mean, believe me.
And so, are you saying, Mr. Zakama,
pretty much on their road to take that land too when the CPP actually resuscitated them?
Mr. Zakama, are you saying the CDC, like other parties you mentioned, tie around President Weah?
Obviously, CDC is tied. I mean, it's something known. It's a known. CDC is built around Ambassador Weah. I mean, from the genesis of CDC, for CDC to gain recognition at the national platform, it was because of Ambassador Weah's popularity, and I would say because of he was able to carefully, perhaps he knowing or not trying to know it that way, transfer his popularity into the birth of CDC as a political institution. And that popularity meaning were the young folks. And we saw that CDC was actually, CDC actually became popular because the younger generation. And
so talking about CDC being tied around President Weah, you have been a leader in our party. Is there anything that you did to not make it look like that the party being tied around one person? Did you make any effort personally or in terms of the leadership structure? Because you are just predating, should something not be done about this behavior of the party being tied around one person, it will suffer the same fate of other parties in the past.
Yes, and I'll give you an example of what some of the things that I did. During the election, political leader then George Manuel Weah, Ambassador George Manuel Weah, wherever he went, there were thousands of people waiting to see him. They were just him. And I made it clear to some of my fellow seditionists. I said, look, if we all follow Ambassador Weah to campaign, we are not campaigning. Because what? He's already enticing people. His presence is bringing people. We need to go separate in order to campaign because we need to reach out to some people. So what did I do on my own? I campaigned areas where Ambassador Weah wasn't going. And I went to some area that Ambassador Weah did not go. So what I'm trying to say here is that, secondly, before the campaign, I also hosted my inauguration here. As much as I would have loved for Ambassador Weah to have been here, he couldn't come, but we had a successful, massive turnout at the inauguration in the absence of Ambassador Weah. So what that meant was, could we gradually look at the institution versus just one person? Because Ambassador Weah today is the political leader. When he leaves, there will be another group that will nurture to lead that party. And Ambassador Weah, with his popularity and being, a former head of the party, will be able to come out to endorse that person with the institution still intact. But if we say, okay, everybody will focus on Ambassador Weah, when he leaves, the people believe that it is not him, so they're not going to come around. But if we make the people to build around the ideas, the platform, the policy that will benefit the Liberian people, if people begin to feel the impact, they will say CDC. They will say CDC. So when Ambassador Weah leaves, when the man is going to vote, he's going to vote for CDC, just like how the people in South Africa, when they're going to vote, it's ANC. So that's the bedrock. We have to focus on the institution because what? Our goal is to transform the lives of the people. But if our goal is to make Ambassador Weah our president and that's it, and after him that's it, then the future of those that in CDC, I would say, is oblique. People might not see their future after Ambassador Weah, and that makes it difficult.
That makes it difficult. He is saying, looking at the way the CDC is tied around George Weah, should that model not be changed, CDC will suffer the same fate, which will be a political death, and that is my words, like NDPL, TWP, MPP, LPP, UPP, and you can name the rest that you know. Folks in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia in a conversation with Mr. Zakama. Mr. Zakama, ideologies some people call it doctrines, philosophies of political institutions in Liberia. I have not seen it. I don't know it. I don't know how I can distinguish CDC from, let's say, ANC or Unity Party. The only way I know is by the leaders. And apart from the leaders, I don't know of CDC policies other than propo. I don't even know what that means. Even many citizens don't know what that propo means because I look at definition based on the application, based on the execution. It's not just the words. So in application, all the political parties, I see everybody following the leader. Like the song in Liberia said, follow the leader. Do these political parties have philosophies, ideologies, and doctrines that they are known by? If not, is there a problem for the lack thereof?
I think obviously, every political institution will have their core values that they will champion, they will articulate. In fact, that's what they will use to kind of entice or attract people to the party. Mm-hmm. I think the problem that we are looking at is the application of those policies. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's take, for example, CDC has what we call the 10 core values. And we talk about women empowerment. We talk about social justice. Now, is the applicability of those core values that would make people to believe that, yes, CDC definitely believe in women empowerment. Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of women empowerment, are we only looking at women being appointed to higher office to create a balance? That could be one. And if CDC is meeting that threshold compared to what she inherited from her predecessor, then I think CDC is meeting the part of its core value. The next thing is social justice. Social justice could be that is not for the highest bidder, means that justice will be applied irrespective of your social status. Comparing to where CDC inherited to where it is CDC meeting when they talk about social justice, talking about equality, is CDC meeting those thresholds that is set for itself? Then we have to go back to look at to look at what CDC have done. Now, one of the areas that I totally feel that the party needs to do more on is the justice part of it, because I strongly believe that the death of Matthew Innes, the death of the 4 auditors, the Pitts report, the $16 billion. I strongly believe that, look, Mr. President, I am not calling on you directly. When I'm calling you, I'm indirectly calling the Justice Ministry, the judiciary. They need to do their job. They can't wait for the president to tell them, because these are institutions erected to serve the Liberian people. So it is part of CDC's core value to make sure that social justice for all, irrespective of your social status. So that's what we need to see. And if we cannot see it, people will debate that CDC is not meeting one of its own what you call one of the 10 core values. So that's where I always like to hold my own party to say, look, the international community is not silent. They might pretend to be silent, but they know that we are becoming lackadaisical as it regards to applying our own one of our 10 core values, social justice for all, for those people, and the Pitts report. Even I'm not saying go in. I'm not saying that the Justice Ministry should pretend to prosecute, but do your job without any impediment. So yes, CDC does have its core value. CDC does the propo. Actually, if one has to simplify it, it's about not only focusing on the rich or those that have enjoyed immense social status, but also to cascade those policies down to the poor, the poorest of the poor, to become beneficiary of their own country's wealth.
And on the issue of justice and rule of law that you just talked about, I sense a huge disappointment on your part because you made specific references to instances that happened on the watch of CDC, and up to now, we don't know what happened in those matters.
Yeah, I mean, let me be real here. You know, every inaction in government, right, doesn't come out well against that God. It doesn't come out well. And the interpretation is people are complicit to these things. And the president, remember, there are two individuals that were elected across the entire country. And that's the president and the vice president. So 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, the Matthew Innes issue, the Pitts report, the death of the 14 auditors.
Four auditors.
The four auditors would not be forgotten, and they were associated with President George Manuel Weah and his team. It's just like how today, I was young in college when the war started. I remember about 4 men were beheaded and their hair was displayed at JFK. Today, when I think about it, I associate with the Samuel Doe government. And I can't remember anybody being prosecuted and put in jail for that. I don't think they were just walking and their hair dropped off their head. So those are kind of things that, you know, when a country, especially in the advent of social media, where every information now, you know, goes across within nanoseconds, you cannot underestimate the damage it can do to your government and your people. And one thing I would like to emphasize, I keep reading from some of my fellow citizens that CDC is not receiving, financial funding from international community. You don't know why they are holding it. It could be some of the reasons why I just mentioned. Because many of these countries or multilateral institutions or bilateral relationship you have, some of the people that have their foreign policy is predicated on maybe social justice. It could be focusing on financial, corruption.
Accountability.
Accountability.
The rule of law.
Rule of law. And all of these things, if you don't meet them, you're not going to get the money. So what you're explaining to me, that you're not getting money, it means that you're not doing what you should be doing. And this is handicapping a man that came to help his people. So that means those that are around him are not helping him. They are not helping him. Because look, I'm not trying to defend Ambassador Weah here. I'm not trying to defend him here. But you know what happened? For a country where you appoint people and all they do is wait for the president to tell them what to do, that means you don't have a drive. Because even today, if I'm called today, I'm talking about if I was everybody, and I want to do my job and I'm stopped by performing, I have option to resign. I don't have to stay there for a paycheck because it's all about integrity. It's all about you showcasing what you can do for your country. And at the end of the day, who benefits? The president, not Ato Zakama, because people might not remember me 10, 20 years from now who was XYZ. They'll remember them. On President George Manuel Weah, this is what was being done. This is what people used to do. People will model after you. But when you have a justice system, and that's one of our major problems in that country, the justice system.
And Mr. Zakama, do you see deficit here in terms of integrity, something you just mentioned? And I want to bring this thing in and tie it into our topic here. I see political sycophancy, praises and worship my reading of the pages of history in Liberia, this is not new. But sometimes because I did not see it happening then, there's the temptation on my part that this is in the roof. Do you share that same feelings?
Well, sometimes I have been very, very calculative to not throw out the word sycophancy across everyone that defend the government.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is that there are people who, based on their own assessment of
Mm-hmm.
progress,
Mm-hmm.
that things that perhaps they never saw before, overall, what aggregate they are looking at, they could be defending maybe one of the 10 core values of CDC that they're passionate about, and they can say, you know why, as it relates to housing, equality, the poor people are benefiting. If that man is speaking in regards to what CDC has done, if housing was his number one, he's going to be praising CDC. But overall, in a country, especially a third world country, where the government, let's just say job as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
job is almost like a gold dust.
Tell me about it.
You cannot, the reason why you have sycophancy, even if the man knows that things are wrong, the first law that we all know about is, self-preservation.
Yep.
Is the man wants to protect that one and only job he has for he and his family. So obviously it gives rise to sycophancy. It has nothing to do, because he doesn't think about integrity anymore. Mm-hmm. The reason why you and I have the option to speak directly to our government, whether we get a job or not, is because we have options. We stay in the diaspora. If we don't have job today, we apply, we'll get job. But the man in Liberia being a very small, tight little country where everybody literally have consolidated in Monrovia, and we have an imperial presidency where the president literally appoints almost everybody from city mayor to paramount chiefs. You don't expect all these people then to let go of their job. So is it killing Liberia? Definitely. What do we need? We need to decentralize. And I believe that Ellen spoke about the day of imperialism, has come to an end, but it did not. Because when she spoke about it, she complained about having mayoral election and appointing city mayors. So that means, Madam President, you did not decentralize that. And we inherited it in order for us to kind of decentralize that so that the Liberian people within their major cities can elect their city mayor. Again, we started doing the same thing. Okay, I would like to see that the people of the various counties, mm-hmm. some way, somehow, we have the good governance. They need to really think about how can we elect superintendents. Yes, not every county has those rich endowments, but how do we allow the people to elect their own representative and work with central government in order to make sure that there's equitable distribution of our national resources across the country? That is building good schools, building good hospitals, good roads, so that our people can be an integral part of our social economic development. But as long as the president is literally appointing almost everybody, it's not going to be possible to say we'll get rid of sycophancy, because that's what people survive on. There are a lot of grown men and women, married people that I respect heavily. But these people live in Monrovia and they have government jobs. The contrast, you agree with me to conclude quickly, mm-hmm. The contrast that when these people talk to you over the phone, it's different than what you see them write. Because what? Social media is conspicuous. So you find people like, this is the man who I spoke to just now.
Yeah.
He said, my man is rough here. The government is not doing anything good. But the same man will go and write that the government is doing well. So if CDC, my own government, if CDC using those presses as a matrix to determine their win, it was completely contradictory because what we were hearing was not what some of these people were writing. And I'm not going to expose these people. No. So again, sycophancy will remain for the longest as long as we do not decentralize.
Folks in cyberspace, that was the voice of Mr. Ato Zakama. He is my guest in this edition of the Hour of Politics. Right now, I will ask you to send questions. If you have them, just type your questions. We'll get to them quickly. We are about to move into our final segment. And then after that, we will read your comments and questions so that Mr. Zakama can respond. Mr. Zakama, let's come to this final question in this segment and move to our last segment, which is diaspora Liberians. Yeah. Liberians in the diaspora and their role in Liberia political process. And those of you watching, you want to be part of it. What can we do? Earlier, Mr. Zakama was talking about, setting benchmarks, setting criteria for the political parties, setting thresholds. We live here, we see these things. Are we carrying those things? And that's just an example. And there's a whole lot of examples that we can talk about. How have we been participating and influencing, our political process in Liberia for it to be competitive and developmental oriented? Mr. Zakama, in this segment, the you versus us mentality, politically in our democracy, is not new. You talked about that earlier, but in a more different faction when you were talking about the True We Party then on William V. S. Tubman, and even before that, the you versus us mentality. I think I see it today. Opposition people and government people. It's you versus us. And the other segment we are about to get in, I also see it there. People in Liberia, you versus us mentality still exists between them and us in the US. Is this one of our major problems? And how can we overcome this problem?
Well, let me go back again. I think I started off by saying that first and foremost, diaspora Liberians, let's try to look at it, let's try to unveil this whole I would say concept that people, how they define the word diaspora. Diaspora, simply, just to simplistically define it, are citizens spread outside of their native land. Mm-hmm. That's it. So it means Liberians that reside in Sierra Leone, that left maybe during the war, and Ivory Coast, Guinea, let's say part of Africa, the USA, the West, and Asia. Those are your diaspora Liberians. I mean, I'm trying to give this definition because there are people in Liberia, when they hear the word diaspora, they try to look at it as people who feel superior over them. Mm-hmm. And that's not the interpretation. That's not the interpretation. Now, like diaspora Liberians being a part of the political landscape of our country is something that all political institutions must respect and accept because it is pervasive, it's present. It began with ULA in the 70s against Tobo. At the time, we never had the social media. So people were not seeing one another. People were not seeing, when they hear about things, maybe after 2-3 months, or maybe, one white paper will see it after maybe a year or two. But this time we see all these things in, all these interaction or engagement, real time on social media. So in fact, it makes it harder now for countries in Africa, specifically Liberia, to really engage diaspora Liberians. because those days, Western Union, say MoneyGram, we didn't know about them. During the war, we only knew about what? AT&T and how money was remitted. I believe people used to go through the bank. But now we have MoneyGram, we have other competitors. So that makes diaspora Liberians to be an integral part of our social, economic, and political development going forward. Government must be receptive to diaspora Liberians because they are influential. These people, let's speak of the West specifically, they have the wherewithal to impact change or changes in our country. I will give you a good example. It starts with United Party. Early won because of great assistance from diaspora Liberians, those that subscribe to United Party, and those that deeply have personal relationship with her from the diaspora to solicit funds and help her with her campaign. Fast forward, the same with CDC. CDC benefited significantly from CDC USA. And CDC USA was able to kind of spread out across 19 states to make sure that they, to create this awareness of CDC message to all Liberians wherever they were living in the United States. And CDC was able to capitalize on that from Asia to Europe to Canada. We have CDC spread out. And that consolidated the message to make people to know that CDC, the mother organization, has supporters outside. And that makes it much more viable and vibrant to counter any thing against the party. The same thing now with CPP. Even when Costa came here, he capitalized on the diversity of diaspora Liberians. Today, they were able to organize COP. And you have CPP, you have ANC, and ANC is kind of dispersed across the United States, Europe, and Asia as well. So any political institution coming to Liberia, in Liberia, government now, if you underestimate the power of diaspora Liberians, it's at your own detriment. It's at your own detriment. And I would like to recognize quickly, even though he's not someone that I endorse and I'm not part of his political party, but the recent election of Senator Dillon, I watched the young man. And kudos to him if you're listening or he will watch it later. Kudos to him for recognizing diaspora Liberians when he won last year. He did not send letter of gratitude and appreciation for his victory last year. He flew over and met with those people from state to state, right in my own backyard in Minnesota, and went along. What happened this year for him?
He increased it for the last time he won with 30,000, and this time he tripled it with 82,000.
Exactly so. So if you think that diaspora Liberians, I'm talking about a government, a sitting government, if you think that diaspora Liberians, are not influential, they can't do anything, well, it's up to you. But there is no way there's no way you can move forward without their assistance, because these people, they know how to organize. Why? Because they have their senators here, congressional leaders that they can reach out to. They can sell you or not sell you. They can make the government of the United States to go against you, especially when you don't have anybody to counter it right here within the same time. So you have to have people organizing for you as a government.
Mr. Zakama, thank you so very much there, excellent expose on that. But there is criticism, despite the acknowledgement by all, Mr. Zakama, about the potential, the power, and there's so much opportunity, enormous opportunity that the diaspora, group carries, and that can be so much good for Liberia. There are criticism, and maybe talking more on the potential. Let's look at how much being remoted to Liberia.
That's right.
The record says that it has always been between 500 million yearly. There
Yeah.
has been a little decline here and there based on the way things are going. But if you look at that, you see that diaspora Liberians have been raising pretty much the entire budget. That's why we've been contributing. If you take that out of the country, that country will be in serious trouble than we can imagine. So that is one huge potential. But here comes the criticism. Like you, many citizens sat here in the diaspora. CDC was giving birth yet and then transported to Liberia.
Yeah.
You mentioned PA and other political institutions. The ideas was inspired here and then transported to Liberia.
That's right.
We always see Liberians leaving and going to Liberia during the political season to participate. So people are saying all they do in the diaspora is bring us trouble and trouble, and because not recognizing the goods, the trouble and the trouble, they'll bring the political. Now the war, they are saying the war was birthed here. The idea started from here, and we all can tell what the war did to our country. Are those criticisms legitimate at all?
Well, there are some legitimate concerns that have been raised, and I will kind of talk about it. You see, Mr. Sear, when President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf ascended to power, the first thing many of us thought that this lady, after advocating for good governance of Liberia and being put in jail, coming out, building her international repertoire, giving the opportunity to serve, especially in post-war, where the people were exhausted. The people were looking for hope. They were looking for that change. Ellen became that pivotal individual to have changed the trajectory of our nation. Liberians from all over, even those that did not vote for her, have pinned their hopes and aspirations, looking for that sense of direction. Ellen, respect what I'm just saying, Ellen, she had the opportunity for her policy to have changed Liberians' mind. That is how when she started prosecuting J.D. Bryant, making sure that there was nobody above the law. That example should have continued on her tenure. Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, posterity will judge her, but she knows very well all of the social vices that crumbled Liberia to its knee. Nepotism, corruption. We could go down the list.
Injustices.
Social injustice. All of those social vices rekindled under her tenure. That was my disappointment. In fact, nothing really made me to question her leadership more was when she started indirectly compromising those integrated institutions that she herself put in place. When she said, I will put my neck on the chopping board, and at the same time taking responsibility for the bankruptcy in
Noka. Yeah.
But once you do that, especially for a country that has imperial presidency, where everybody looks up to you for appointment, once you take responsibility, once you say, I put my neck on the chopping board, you know what it does? It compromises the institution from going after those people that committed the crime against the state. Because nobody wants to lose their job. Now, fast forward into my own party when we won. I strongly believe that Ambassador George Manneh Weah would have attracted the international community to Liberia and brought in more money than even Ellen. And for some reason, I had a strong conviction. And how that would have happened? One, I was looking at him being a world former soccer star, that his name across the length and breadth of the world, his name was literally a household name where soccer was popular. Two, he had just inherited the world poorest nation, one of the world poorest nations on the face of the earth, meaning that we need help. The next thing, he should have audited Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government. With that audit, it would have remained discretionary for him to either prosecute or not to prosecute, but to make sure you have that document to present to the international community that this is what we inherited and these are the things that we need to move the country forward.
Mr. Zakama, let me come in quickly and stay on the criticism of Liberians in the diaspora. Let's use the CDC case here as an example and for my question. The CDC has leaders in the diaspora, you included.
Thank you.
And you see that your party is now on track to your satisfaction in governing our country. You are using the example of George Manawia. He could use a county status to attract enormous contribution or funds to that country. But he needed to set the foundation in Liberia. The tone was not set. That's what you just spoke to.
Yep.
You know that, leaders in the party know that, and many of you are here in the diaspora. You see this party or this government on this slippery path, and you have been more than silent. There has not been a coordinated message, warning, or condemnation on your part in this regard. Do I have a point here?
I think that's unfair to me because on my page, I usually will speak on areas that.
No, I said coordinated.
Okay, yeah.
Coordinated.
Yeah, because.
As a team, as a political institution that gave birth to a government, and you see that government is not doing as much as it should, that ostracize its brains.
Yeah, but you have
this part, and there's not coordinated effort on your side.
Yeah, Mr. Sonny, with all fairness, the institution says we won, right?
Right.
I would tell you that there is, it's either willfully being silent or people are not happy. Because when we won, the way CDC USA were treated really make a lot of people to kind of remain inactive, right? So we finding some of us remain in some of the our private, what we call chat room, to communicators to people what was going wrong. But when we felt that people were not listening anymore, the first thing that registered in my mind, I said, power. Power has consumed some of our colleagues. And perhaps people are not trying to retrospect about our last 40 years. Because these positions are transient. They come and go. And if you don't maintain it, the Liberian people will get rid of you. And we're seeing a good sign of it coming forward. So I do concur with you. And you heard me going after my own government about the $16 billion, about the $17 million. Let me just qualify the $16 billion Liberian dollar, not US dollar. The 17 million / 25 million, because it came out as 25, but I was told that it's actually $17 million that the PACE report came about. I talk about Matthew Innes' death that coincided with. I speak of these things because I want the government to know that I am a sedition. But those things that, Mr. President, you spoke about it. You constituted a team to carry on the audit, to investigate. They presented the report. All you need to do is to apply. The Liberian people just need to know. So yes, it is the application that I'm talking about. And I would definitely want to see the president taking the border pulpit and speaking to the Liberian people regarding the death of the 4 auditors. Those things not going to go away. And I will say it over and over. It's not whether people like me or people hate me. But it can come back to haunt a man that we all championed once upon a time. Because he's going to face the wrath of it. So again, Mr. Sear, I don't know whether the institution can do it or they can do it. I am not really the leader of the party now. Former is left with them. If they are ready, they can respectfully write a 4-letter to the president internally to let him know that these are the things that went on wrong. Liberian people sending the message to us that, look, we're not voting against you because of only the bread and butter. And that's what people are thinking about alone, then they're making sad mistakes. Because it's not only the bread and butter. It is about your inaction on the $16 billion. It is your inaction about the death of Matthew Innes. It is the inaction of the prosecution of the $17 million. It is your inaction for the 4 auditors. So it is not just about bread and butter. People want security. People want security. People want accountability. People want transparency.
Thank you.
Country. So yes, I totally agree with you. Yeah, the institution should come up with it. I'm ready to defend my party anyway. But you know what? It's a party. That's why they call party. We register in a public domain. That is with the National Election Commission. We are not a secret society where everything is done in-house. No, this is the public space. If it goes wrong, we, former leaders, people question us. And those who just joining us to be now, in fact, the people who joined CDC recently, I think they are defending the party more than
those of you who've been there for all the years.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Zakama. And folks in cyberspace, we have been discussing multi-partism in Liberia, Liberian political parties, and what role have they been playing in our ballot politics. These parties tend to win election, and then we have then to decide our fate. And today we have the CDC. And the thing I'm saying is that brothers and sisters in Liberia are holding diaspora Liberians responsible, and there's a huge criticism on our part. CDC, to a credit, won an election. For some reason, many of their leaders in the U.S. or in the Western world have been ostracized, and they see their government treading on the slippery slope. There's not a coordinated message from them. They are sitting there, either some of them waiting that things will get better, either they're waiting for them to be caught, and they think that when they get caught and get in the government, they will be able to correct the mistakes. There are so many transgressions that are going on. They speak about them, some of them to their credit, open it, but I'm saying you are an institution. Your efforts, your work is being buried here, and your reputation and your character on the line, and you are silent. You just want to speak as an individual. You won, you campaign as an institution. Why you can't speak as an institution when those things that you don't want to see are happening? Folks in cyberspace, it's about time for you, for us to read your comments here, and then I will have my guests to quickly respond to them, and then we will get out of here. Please make them short so that, let me see this one here. This one is from Maurice Sekou Kene. That's exactly why the recent president should personally be held responsible for what's going on in Liberia. That is what that viewer is saying. This one is from Mata George. Mata George writes, thank you. I don't know whether that was when my guest, Mr. Zakama, was talking about the vices that are ongoing here. And then this one is from A. Blambo. White women having problem having baby. Their number is going up. But man, I don't know what you're talking about with this one. This one is from Rachel Johnson. Rachel writes, "We esteem others higher." I don't know what is that related to. Let me see this other comment here. This one is from Victoria Konga Mulumber. Why we African do not accept facts? We are in a third world. Please don't be in denial. Yeah, somebody's making a point there. We shouldn't be in denial. I don't want to use that word. Let me see this one from Ablamo again. She became she had the backing of the U.S. I think he meant to say she became president and she had the backing of the U.S. In the voice of Joseph Yuman Bwaka, they squandered so many opportunities. If your vice president can say that, that is telling. Manta Joy again, the president refused to listen to good people like the chairman and others. Let me see this one. I hope it's not too long. This one is from Steve Watson. The Liberian opposition are calling for the past government to be audited, but CDC-led government is refusing to keep, is refusing, but keep telling the Liberian people that the past government was corrupt. You see the irony right there? They're telling the Liberian people they were corrupt, but then, hand on them, you have the gavel in your hand. That's why the gavel was given to you, but you don't want to act. Let me see this very long one from Victoria again. Thanks. The world countries are all the other countries. You guys should take your time to write this in better so I can read it. This includes most of Africa, Asia, and Latin America as a society. The third world country refers to countries with high mortality rate, especially infant mortality rates. They also have an unstable and inconsistent economy. That is a contribution from that viewer. Thank you for that contribution. Let me see this one from Fokwa Kata. You are right, sir. I don't know which one you are referring to, but Mr. Zakama said a lot of things that are right. Mr. Zakama, time is fast spent. And quickly, your reaction to the few comments that I just read.
Thank you very much. I think I just want to address maybe one or two. Somebody kind of confused with the word. In context, third world have been associated with developing nation. So you can go through from political instability to corruption, infant mortality rate. We can go through a lot from education down. So it's just a way. But if we want to look at the history of it, they all began with non-aligned countries during the Cold War. So we don't have to go all in, but it's actually meant to identify developing nations. And it's not just Africa alone. There are countries in Asia that are also considered developing nations as well. With that said, my appeal to the political parties back home is we all need to kind of focus on Liberia and focus on the issue. I mean, yes, there's some at times it will be intensive. People want to go to the extent of name calling and false accusation. We're talking about the lives of others, even those that are serving, to accuse them on things that they have not been convicted on. These things can be a stigma on them. So with that too, I'm calling on the government that let's utilize the institutions, the justice system, LACC, GSC. Let's utilize these institutions because they are integrity institutions. They are meant, they were structured to really show resemblance as the way the Western world operate. In fact, Ellen was the one that put people like LACC in place. Okay, it cannot be toothless. What's the essence of getting paid and you're not doing anything? And let us stop targeting people, because if we dispensing justice without picking and choosing, the Liberian people will believe us. The Liberian people will believe us. But as long as we remain selective, for example, we refuse to audit the entire government of the Republic of Liberia. But we are on the rampage going after Amara Kone. We are going after Brownie Samokai. We are going after surrogates of Madam Ellen Johnson government. I mean, some of these guys are defending themselves. But to be real, as member of the ruling party, it's ludicrous for us to go after the surrogates and refuse to audit Madam Sally's administration. Look at it this way. If CPP comes to power and CPP refuses to audit the WIA's administration, why would you want to go after McGill? Why would you want to go after Tuet? Why would you want to go after all of the names and that people accuse him for stealing the Liberian people's money? For me, I don't speculate. I don't believe in it. Until it is proven in the court of law, for me, Amara Kone and the rest, they are innocent. They are innocent. So when people go after Amara Kone for this, that, I met Amara Kone once in my life. That's when he came to Minnesota. Until the Liberian people can audit the administration and say, yes, this is what James Cody did. This is what these people did. Please, fellow citizens, let's go after our own government to audit Ellen. Outside of that, we are only making empty noise. And with that said, I want to say thank you for inviting me. And this is something that I really wanted to talk about, because sometimes I read these things and I shake my head. I'm like, I can't believe that even if you love Ambassador Weir, are you saying that you can't tell Mr. President it is never too late to audit the administration? Then, Mr. President, you have the choice to say you leave Ellen and her children. But at least you have a record with you.
Mr. Zakama, I want you to close with this. This is important, and you will agree with me. This tone in our political discourse, this militarization of our politics. You know, I see your party, we now come with fire. and this chanting, and somebody speaking as though they're talking to a troop of army rally to go for battle. And there's this saying that words can do so much damage that you will not be able to repair. And this kind of political language don't being used to charge the political atmosphere to the extent that if you are a ruling party person and I'm your friend, I'm opposition, my friends in opposition would think that I'm fake. I'm not supposed to be your friend. I'm not supposed to. And where are we going with this? I want you to speak today as a leader.
Well, thank you so much. I spoke about that a few weeks ago. I don't know which of the talk show. Mm-hmm. But, considering our past history of 14 years of civil war, where many young girls and young boys witnessed the entire war, some of them never left our country. They became combative, defensive, or people learn how to do things on their own early. And now we are within the political sphere, and where a lot of people now still transition that battle cry, that militancy, that posture of always being definitive, not even want to take correction because they believe that if they do, that means they are subjecting their personal being or their pride to that person. We were in opposition. We yell, we scream for economic justice. We yell and scream for social equality. That was opposition. Now we are the ruling party. the Liberian people have given us the chance and opportunity to serve. That transition, we must understand it's time let it take place. Militancy, the screaming and yelling has to stop. The president down to the major leaders of the party, the buried, the children are modeling after you. Those are young people. Some of them were 10 years old when the war started. 14 years later, they're 24. Ellen came in and added another 12 years. Okay? So you're talking about what? 36 grown men, but they're still psychologically performing low. So if we as leaders don't demonstrate to them that we are not opposition anymore, we are the ruling party, and our goal is to attract investors instead of trying to show how militant we are, we will not be able to create the job for you people. I think that's what we need to tell them. So my advice to the leaders first, stop showing that militancy to the younger partisan that are out there, because they're trying to imitate you, because their survival or survivability depends on you. So whatever you do, they follow it. So it's time to put down that militant government down and focus on creating jobs, creating vocational training for those young men and girls that have no way out in life, because they're depending on CDC. We got 3 more years. I would say just 2 years. If we have to break it down, CDC has only 1 year and 10 months to put everything right. We need jobs for those children, especially job training. Some of them can become mechanics, auto mechanic, electrician, mason, carpenter. We need to take these children to these vocational training schools. From there, we need to start investing in our schools where the children will start, getting work experience immediately, building schools, refurbishing our schools, our hospitals, our roads. Those are major things that they can contribute to. So I personally don't believe in that militancy. And I'm appealing to the leadership from President George Manuel Weah to McGill to the Tuer, all of these things. When you wear those berets and you show that militancy persona to the young boys, they themselves wear it too, because what? They want to be like you. But the outcome of that scares potential investors away because of the country's history. So who would want to have their $30 million to invest in a country that is always creating that political unrest? Nobody wants to lose their money. So again, my appeal, this is not to denigrate. I know people are passionate about it, but as a ruling party, it is not helping. It is not helping us to attract people. In fact, it's a distraction. Okay? It's a distraction. If you know people fighting in an area, you go and build a glass house there. Well, thank you for showing that picture. I think that some of the picture I was picturing, visioning in my mind, and I said, I need to coordinate to where McGill, the president, everybody. These things, and when the children see it, especially like I call the ages, they might be 36 years old, but they look old, right? But believe me, look at the years that I talk about. You're talking about what? 30, somebody 10 years old, 14 years of civil war, that's 24. Then you're talking about another 12 years, plus the 3 years. So plus 3 years, so they're 39.
Yeah.
They're 39 years old. But yet and still, that man, he has children now. You think that he's a grown man. But psychologically, his functioning level is all the way down to maybe 20. And he's looking up to McGill, he's looking up to Tuer, When he sees these guys in dressing, he dresses like that. And guess what? It passes on to his wife and his children. And then you want for somebody who wants to invest in our country to say, you know what happened? Yes, we're going over there knowing that Liberia is on record and YouTube carry the record. Seeing cannibalism, you got people killing one another. People exhibiting cannibalism in Liberia. People look at the war history. We killed our president. All of these things. And I just about 20 some years ago. And you want for people to forget, and you demonstrating that this is not ANC in South Africa. There is no way we can be close to South Africa. There is no way. Let people get this clear. South Africa history is unique and will always be unique for them. For the rest of our lives, South Africa freedom fight. Their freedom fighter. What they fought for is nothing close to Liberia. Liberia, we just automatically form a government and bingo, we created our own social class. As compared to, I just wanted to bring that up.
And Mr. Zakama, thank you so very much for eloquently articulating that part. Myself, I've had a little bit of reservation with that, especially with our finance minister, because I'm one person very critical of him, and he goes out there trying to lobby for Liberia. And if somebody should just go to Google Images and just pull his name, Samuel Twer, and see him with a barrel, something that is associated with militancy. They say, but this guy, if we give him money, they make him eat the money, nothing, Anyway, that's how I see it. Folks in cyberspace, again, we want to say thank you so very much for staying with us throughout this broadcast. Mr. Zakama, we can't thank you enough for eloquently and preparedly discussing this very difficult topic that we had packaged for you. Thank you in doing that. This topic could not have been appropriate for this time because Liberia is at a crossroad, politically speaking. What political parties do now will tell us whether or not we will continue with this smooth democratic transition that we have started. And that is why we chose this topic, because all our political parties must be responsible. Those in opposition and in government, they should be very, very responsible. Folks, that will do it for us here at Focus on Liberia, and we can't leave without playing our closing song that says we are all Liberians. Whether or not you are a ruling party person, whether or not you are opposition or a no position like myself, you are still a Liberian. Whether or not you are in the diaspora, whether or not they're criticizing you for not doing much or bringing all the troubles to Liberia, you are still a Liberian. And as well, our brothers and sisters at home, you all are all Liberians. And that is what the song says. Thank you and bye-bye for now.
We are Liberians.